says he's going to do a half. I don't know if he'll ever get to the full one.
That's a hard race. I'm not gonna lie. It's a minimal race.
Yep.
Can't breathe. Can't breathe. It's always something. It's never the same thing. It's something. Easy to come up with. Yeah, I call it pain, but you know, hey, whatever.
Do what?
We were talking about why I do it, but I just.
I used to love it. I just, it was a
Really big goal.
That's where you are now. I like to walk. I can't run anymore. Yeah, it's too fat. I lose a bunch of weight. No, I'm serious, man. My knees just kill me. I'll walk 8 or 10 miles. Feel good.
Everybody's we want to make it.
I was a distance runner in high school. Whatever believes I look at me now.
I was not. I cheated.
That's what my daughter was. But she's into it now. It's just that almost where you do lobster.
Oh, like there's a couple different ones you can do, like a warrior.
She's got some of those too.
Like fun. They are fun. My husband will do those.
Hopefully for Sarah, she said she'd run on the side.
Yeah.
Unless we start over.
No, that's fine. No, we better wait for it.
Sarah Wassinger had to run upstairs real quick and grab some. There she is.
Lost my touch.
Ready to go? Everybody ready? Okay, I'd like to go ahead and call the USD 49 Board of Education work session for Monday, April 4th to order. First item on the agenda will basically be to approve bills in the amount of $206,441.66. Entertain a motion on that one.
So moved.
Okay. Been moved by Board Member Lang.
Second.
Seconded by Board Member O'Borney. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. And the last action item is personnel transactions. And I believe these are just to, Dean, just to approve the resignations, transfers, retirements.
Transfers, new hires, all those. Yeah.
And we do, looks like, have one retirement on here for Jana Bishop, who will be retiring this year. We'll just entertain a motion to approve those.
Make a motion to approve the personnel transactions presented.
Been moved by Board Member Adams.
Second.
Seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Okay. We can let those people know. All right. Next item on the agenda is consent agenda topics, and those basically which will approve the next meeting. I don't think we're approving those here, correct? Those are the only items. Okay. Basically, the board meeting minutes, special board meeting minutes, and the financial report. So, and I don't know. I guess Tracy's not here, is she?
No, she won't be here this evening.
So next item on the agenda is the high school technology presentation.
We have our science department with us tonight.
Okay.
And tonight we have Cheryl Shepard Adams, Shield, Rennie Zimmerman, Owens, and who did I forget? Just a few.
If you want to go ahead and get out a device, and I'd like you to go to a website called kahoot.it, K-A-H-O-O-T. This is one of the applications that we use in our classrooms. So again, the website you go to is kahoot.it, K-A-H-O-O-T-I-T. It'll ask you for a game pin. At that point, you put in 696765. Now, there's no grade on this little quiz or anything like that. 696765. And we told the kids, yes, you have to put in your real name, your own given name, not some sort of nickname with 3s and 5s in it. There is the option to kick out any kind of inappropriate names that might show up. Not that high school kids would ever do that. Any of the rest of you want to join in, go for it. Is this a direct
No, I'm in touch with you.
Sarah, do we need
We'll have
context
5
for
of
it?
you in here. Don't worry.
Check out.
Now, if a kid doesn't get things working quite at the outset, they can join in later. The first question is, what is the mascot at Hayes High School? You'll see 4 choices, 4 colors there. Indians, Braves, Reds, or Orioles. Take your best shot. Speed counts.
Yes.
The faster you do this, the better your score's going to be. Okay, that's good. All of you got that one? And Lance is in the lead, followed pretty closely by Mandy, on 34 points there. Which of these represents the number of our school district?
We all missed those.
Oh, shoot, I didn't read them all.
Neither did I.
Yeah, well,
Mr. Griffin, you know the red one, right? Yes,
Except for I didn't read all of them.
yeah, me either.
Those are all correct. And now we have Luke, who's going to be up in the second place. What's the hardest substance in the human body? Tooth enamel, gluteus maximus, heart, or skull? Not to give you any hint up there. And the next question, where would you find your pinna? The outer ear, the tibia, on the wrestling mat? Trick question, only women have it.
Yeah,
You know
there's
that.
the hint up there.
I can't hear you. Okay, well, the results are a little more scattered, so if you see this kind of distribution with your students, you think, okay, I need to go back and review with them. And Dean has jumped into the lead. And what does the blue bar on this chart represent? Hayes Mill Levy compared to 5A districts, average vertical leap of Hayes High science teachers, Hayes High science teachers' enthusiasm, the number of positive comments at the Hayes Post. Oh, let me forget. Okay, at the end we have Dean, Lance, Mandy, Luke, Sarah. This is good for just a little way to review. We also have the capability to download the results here as a spreadsheet.
Look at you.
We can see where
Yeah.
each has to. It's great as a quick little review before a small quiz. It's also good for pre-assessment in an informal way.
And it's fun.
Yeah. The kids get pretty competitive about it. Okay.
It's low threat to where you can get some accurate feedback. They do try and have fun, and you have to understand that they're going to slip up by hitting the wrong one.
Oh, I hit the wrong button. How else are you going to get a wrong answer? Of course, well, we went through today, so we're 1/3 of the way through. Jessica's going to visit with you a little bit about some of the interfaces and probes that we use, and Keith is going to go through some of the gizmos work that we've got.
Let's see if I can figure this out. All right, the image that's on either wall is the LabQuest 2. In addition to software that we have some hardware, so we're a little bit more specialized in science. We have that ability to be able to branch out other than just the surfaces. And so we have these handheld devices that we can hook up to a multitude of different detection devices, I should say, just lab probeware. And so we use them all the time. So in chemistry, I took a few students' pictures. In Chem 2, when we were studying pH, just finding the equivalence points of titrations, being able to use the pH probes to be able to see the data, then transfer that onto our laptops and be able to look at curves, real-time data, trying to go beyond just what's happening right here, but then add the technology and those 21st century skills. Mrs. Shepherd-Adams tracks her room temperature. It's varied and usually extremely hot. So she's been using it to show, again, real-world data, how to use the equipment. In Mrs. Zimmerman's classroom, they were investigating intermolecular forces, and so they were evaporating things and using a temperature probe and being able to see that, rather than just talking about how we have the strength of intermolecular forces, actually seeing it in real life. We also looked at conductivity of strong weak acids. Again, bringing what's in a textbook to a lab table. We didn't do a lot with it, but using conductivity probes to see that, yes, this dissociates, it splits up. How much? To what extent does it do that? And then using the conductivity to actually see in real life what's happening, again, like in a textbook. And then using a colorimeter to be able to find the concentrations of different things by the different colors, how much light is being absorbed. And so those are just an example of some of the probeware that we have in addition to software. For data collection, some of the software the probes that we do have, the interfaces have evolved over the past 12 years, but the probeware is wonderful. The company that we use does a lot of adaptations and to where we can keep using them. We don't have to buy new all of the time. But technology in chemistry, biology, the physics classes, we use them in all of them.
This is my name's Steve Owens. This is the first year we've been using gizmos, and they've been just a great tool to use. They work very well on devices. We've been able to do a lot of things with them. One of the things that I found really useful is the built-in assessments that come with each gizmos lesson. And it's everything from cells all the way up to populations of deer, so you can do a whole lot of things. After each one, there's a little assessment that the students can take that gives immediate feedback. Either they got the question wrong, and if they got it wrong, it gives them a little information of why they got it wrong. And then I myself, as an educator, can see exactly where they might need a little more help. They're also very interactive too. We can take something that's on a microscopic level where we can't really work with it, or something on a macroscopic level where it's too big to put in the classroom, and they can work with it. The example that I have up here is an enzyme lab. When you ask kids, what does an enzyme look like? What does an enzyme do? That's a very hard concept to wrap their mind around. So they see it on here, they can push buttons, they can stop buttons, they can go at their own speed and see what an enzyme actually does. One of the things that I've really been happy with Gizmos is as a lab preparation tool. It's really great to have the kids look at the experiment beforehand, figure out how to use it, know what the tools are, know how they're going to use the tools, and it really helps speed up the labs. When we're back in the lab, we're actually doing science instead of just slogging through protocol because the kids forgot the steps. They've already done it on the device. Now when they get back there, they've used the tools before they know what to do with them. That's been very successful. Another part of Gizmos that I really like is they're very individualized for each student. Each Gizmo comes out with kind of an assessment that goes with it, but I can take it and I can manipulate it, I can add stuff to it, I can subtract stuff to it. So even though each student is working with the same Gizmo, they're seeing the same thing, if I have a high-level student, I can give them something that's a little more high-level, that challenges them more. Some of the students that are struggling a little bit, we can get a little more basic so they get the skills, but they're still all working on the same thing. So it's been great. We've used it quite a bit in the classroom for several different topics, and I have had a lot of benefit from it.
And we have to toot our horn here because this weekend we saw some very good success at our science competitions. At the State Science and Engineering Fair, we had one student place first in her category, another student place second. The Science Olympiad, which is sponsored by Beth and Lynn, we had 2 second place events and 3 third place events. And this is competition across the entire state. So we have the talent out there, and we're working hard to try to keep developing it. So. But none of this is going to be able to happen. Okay. We really have to make sure that we thank the folks who've given us this time to learn how to use this technology with the kids. And Marie Henderson has been available whenever, wherever we have questions. She's very responsive to our needs. Mr. Staub has helped us with our release time to make sure that we're getting done what we need to get done. He found the funding for our lab equipment. Thank you all for supporting the one-to-one lab cap initiative, Surface initiative now. And then the collaboration time, Mr. Staub and Mr. Albers worked hard to make sure that we could get that scheduled in. And the science teachers, the 5 of us together have some pretty decent brain power, a lot more than any one of us individually. So, thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to use this technology with our kids, and we hope it springboards them onto their future. Thanks.
Thank you for coming.
All right. Next item on the agenda is
I was going to say, nice job. Good to see all the Fort Hayes grads doing a good job. I'm glad to get that.
No, you're fine. Next item on the agenda is the bond issue. Basically discuss the cost of items included in the scope of the bond with, I believe, HBK this year.
Mike, did you?
And, oh, yes.
Yeah, let's
Like I
have
said,
Mike.
We also have a couple of members
The
of
volunteer committee, if you want to come up and give us an
Just kind of, if you
update.
just want an update that way,
I don't-
because I think you were wanting to get to the,
He's at another volunteer meeting here, I know, so.
Thanks, Dean. We got 15 minutes, so we're good.
Yeah.
I was just going to give a real quick update tonight on a few things that have happened over the past couple of weeks. I was just talking to Judy. I said, when you looked at where we were 3 weeks ago, all the unknowns, the sales tax question, unknown. Whether or not the gym was going to be part of the question, or if it was going to be 2 questions, unknown. All those things have been resolved. Right now, I think the only thing that's still pending is the polling locations on June 7th.
They just came out.
Stand corrected. Well,
Yeah, those, yep.
then we're looking really good in terms of.
The American Legion is going to be for city voters, and then St. Nicholas Parish is going to be for outer district voters.
Okay. But just a brief recap of what's happened since that date, and I know for most of the board members, you've been there either in whole or part through these various gyrations of. But City Council, Chris Dinkle and I presented the sales tax question on June 17th. That was voted on with a 2-to-1 yes vote on the 24th. Lance, you were there for that. James, Chris, and I have completed the last of the earlier scheduled town halls and private group meetings. I think we've presented to 6 or 7, Dean, since we picked up that ball. We've since gone on and scheduled another 6 meetings between now and the vote date. April 12th at Lincoln, April 19th at Wilson, April 20th, Hayes High School, April 27th, Hayes High School, May 3rd, Hayes Middle School, May 11th at Roosevelt, and May 18th at O'Laughlin. So again, trying to spread it out amongst the various buildings. We have a meeting of the PR committee tonight, again in just a few minutes. The intent is to voice some radio spots to promote those town hall meetings. The fundraising committee has been pretty active in going out and soliciting donations from businesses and individuals. And many of the businesses that didn't want to make a cash donation did offer up some of their time on their radio contracts for spot placement. So it's these in-kind donations that are going to enable us to promote these subsequent meetings and the vote yes message between now and June 7th. Kind of interesting, just anecdotally, but the negativity seems to have softened quite a bit in the last 2 or 3 weeks. I think The online discussions that you see have become quite a bit more civil, and I think that's encouraging. I'm positive we're still going to see dissenting voices or differences of opinion, and frankly, that's a great thing. You need to have that. But anyway, it seems to have turned something of a corner there. We have a interview with the Conscience of Kansas, Paul Litson, his radio program, scheduled for Wednesday, April 20th at 11 a.m. That'll probably be a 15 to 20-minute interview. And we also are working with Eagle Community Connections for either sometime in the month of April or first 2 weeks of May. And then there's a few pending private group engagements that are coming up in addition to the town halls, civic groups or just groups of folks that get together through their church and whatnot that have asked to have a presentation as well. So that's kind of where we are right now. Any questions?
Be interested in doing one at the university?
Be happy to.
Okay.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'll be in contact with you about that.
Sounds good. We've had, I just wanted to add one thing, the volunteers that have stepped up for the various committees, it's really interesting how folks have kind of fell into their niche and have taken the ball and started running with it between the voter registration, between the fundraising, the PR committee, the speakers, everything is just kind of taking on and falling into place quite nicely. So again, there's still a fair amount of confusion and skepticism about what the bond entails, but we've got 7 more weeks to get through that. So appreciate the support that the board has shown to the various committees, and thank you very much.
I want to thank you, Mike, and all the other committee
All the other
members. Cody
volunteers.
is out here in the audience. They spent countless hours already out doing everything they do, and have done an excellent job, and I know everyone here appreciates it. And I know Lance, Mandy, and Sarah are all involved with that committee as well, and you guys have done a bang-up job and a lot of work to do.
That
but,
progress you're talking about, that negativity and everything else, that's from you guys.
Yeah,
I mean, that
it
is
is.
exactly
They-
what that is.
They've done a very good job.
And we appreciate it greatly.
Continue.
Well, thank you. There's still more work to go, but I think we'll get there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Now we can go through and talk with Chuck, I believe, on it's like the cost of the item included in the scope of the bond.
So, really, I came here this evening to answer any questions that anybody has at this point here on the board, to kind of talk through some of this.
Yeah, I do, and it's probably because I had a constituent come up to me, and it's about the road through the Laughlin School Natural area. And just bringing up the concerns, I know, because he met with me and wanted to know what exactly I planned. And some of the concerns were, one is the traffic flow, because if it does come out there, then it brings it out to that other street, but then it may bring it back to that weird intersection that we have.
Right.
Where people were to come to. That was part of it. The other was the natural area, because there is the owl site there, which is there, and then fill was used to build up that little bridge over the culvert, that drainage ditch. And so that's all fill that's there. And that is maintained by Randy Rogers there, who keeps the wilderness area and the grass going. And so the concern that was expressed to me is that is an old dump site that really we want to put a road in, and then the traffic flow coming out and looking at some other solutions other than taking out an outdoor learning center that's there.
So we actually had three different...
Yeah, I'm thinking of the original picture it showed.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
okay. So we really actually have 3 different options that we can examine as the bond issue passes. One of those is the loop road that goes around, and there's actually 2 of them that are related to a road going around. One would go all the way down to 12th Street. It's up to 12th Street, I believe. The other one would wrap back around into 13th Street. The third was to develop really a turnaround type of possibility. It would turn around on the Catholic property, turn around and come back up the north side of Laughlin as a pickup drop-off zone and come back out. Even in that one there, we would have to complete a traffic study for how that exits back onto Hall Street. So,
Yeah.
and all that is anticipated as part of the cost of the bond issue.
I know it sounds like T&P actually, we visited with them a little bit, their principal and the other one, and it sounds like they've actually initiated a traffic study for Hall Street in front of all that already. And they're basically, I think, waiting to either hear back or, but I know they've initiated that. So
Yeah, that'd be
that'll
something
probably help with some of that as well.
We can look at, and see if we need to do something else.
So we have there's an option, or options that can be developed that don't go all the way around and don't go through the OWLS program. That program is a mid-90s program.
It's still used.
It's still used, that's right. It was funded by Parks and
Yeah,
Wildlife.
I believe so.
And as a grant, it appears that from the research we did, the last grant was in the 90s.
Right.
It's not part of a wildlife conservatory or protected property, rather it's a relationship between the school district and wildlife and parks that's been being maintained within your school district. So, and I get it. So,
Okay. Well, I wanted to bring it up for future planning, and I can, at some point, if we decide, we could bring a committee member in, he could talk about this case, who is a naturalist by training, so he said, visited with me, and I said, yeah. And I think when we talk about it first, I'd ask that question too, because I know when I've worked with the school, I've used that area for working with students as well, so I'd hate to see it go away. Consider other options other than.
Correct. And the options that were looked at prior to that knowledge that went around that area were also intended to stay out of the wetland area as much as possible, stay up west side. Again, when we get through the design and engineering of it, if we can find a solution that's outside of that, that would probably be preferable. And I think we pick up on in the right direction, coming into the property and back out, if we can resolve our whole street traffic.
Yeah. And I don't think there's any good traffic solution. Coming out the other way, you're going to shoot them back into town at that stop sign.
That's right.
It's a very odd intersection.
It's sort of a precedent of coming in and out and T&B and back out in that same area. We looked at the potential for either does that driveway move a little bit further north away from O'Loughlin, and we reconfigure the north portion of the drop-off line in front of O'Loughlin. So those costs are built in whether we go around it or we stay there, they end up having a similar kind of cost. So.
Okay, all right. We'll back to it again.
Okay.
Well, I guess the other question I have is that we have been talking with construction management risk to find out about that versus general contractor, which we talked about before, and I guess clarification about if we get to the same endpoint, whichever way we go, is without going over what we're allowed to spend, whatever. Assuming we vote and we get that done. What's your take on this?
Well, I think we talked a little bit about it last fall, kind of the pros and cons in each one of those, and whether there's more costs in it or where the value is in one or the other. I said all along that if we come to a point in some portion of this process, once we pass the bond issue, where we feel like we need to revisit a construction manager for what the strengths that they may bring to the project or stay with design, traditional delivery, we'll do it. And if HDK runs into a situation where we're needing, some of the benefit of a CM, whether it's part of one project or the entire bond issue, we're going to be the first one to step up and tell you that you need to do that. In terms of costs, I think that's where maybe some people ask. We've felt like it, and our experience, that there's a higher elevated, a little bit more cost in fees when you go through a construction management at-risk project, and that's primarily built on additional value that a good CM firm would bring to your process. Quite frankly, usually construction managed firms manage projects are better managed projects. The process is better managed than the low bid traditional delivery. They have more people managing the project, so it's natural that there will be a higher amount of cost to them to provide that service than low bid general contractor. added value, obviously, is you're able to control the quality of your bidders and your suppliers and your subcontractors in that process, and have a better managed potential project with contiguous responsibility. And if you take it across your entire bond issue, obviously you have better responsibility, contiguous responsibility for all projects in the bond issue. If you take it into a single project, then that'd be way more on direct comparison to the contractor.
Does it control cost too, I mean, as you're going along, because
Well, yeah, I think that's part of the process, especially
More about
once you
better
get through,
management.
once you get through the bond issue, that's part of the sales, I think that the construction managers are going to talk about. And with, again, a good scope and a good understanding as you go into a contract, or at least the selection process, and evaluating the construction managers, really going to talk about how they can provide additional value or service during the pre-construction phase of the project. So when you're in the design and engineering part of it, will they be along and can they provide additional value in the evaluation of materials and selection of construction or types and those kinds of things, and how the project's ultimately bid and delivered in its packages. So that's part of the value. And again, with good construction management firms, there's probably some value there that can be brought into it. And so I don't know, can they save you money over what you had intended on doing your bid for bid? Don't know, because you're really still, at the end of the day, bidding the same specifications for the same types of products. That I think the bigger benefit will be talking about the constructability of the project and the systems and materials you're trying to build, and the phasing and the sequencing and those kinds of things, especially in continuous operation building, and maybe find ways to save money in those areas versus the product-to-product comparison.
So I guess just the fact you're basically talking about that technically we're getting higher quality, if you will, as far as the other stuff, why would we not want to look at moving forward with this right now?
Usually most school districts or entities that don't look at construction management is the potential for a higher cost.
But if we're basically being told that we've got our bond hard set at 94 million, or else, I guess I should clarify, it's 80 some, and then if the other piece,
Right.
but total cost at the end is X amount of dollars.
Yes.
We're basically, the way I understand it though, we're guaranteed that it's not going to go over that dollar. So if anything, it gives us transparency and accountability with the voters, in my opinion.
Yeah, part of the construction management's responsibility is they're going to at some point need to step in there and say, yeah, we're going to take ownership of the budget and the costs, and we're going to be at risk. And that's why construction management at risk is only the kind that's allowed for school districts. And at that point, they're going to need to make sure they feel good about what it is they're guaranteeing. Now, obviously, part of that will be give and take. If you go through time and your budget's getting strapped on how the district can work with the construction manager and the design team to control those costs through 94. So they're not going to take the whole boat. HDK or your design team is still going to have responsibility in helping you deliver a project within your budget.
But if that's the case, so wouldn't we be better than getting them involved, whoever it may be, sooner rather than later, so we can start getting those conversations? Because at the end of the day, as far as looking at several of these and looking at a lot of the other ones, I guess it can be looked at that, well, we're counting our chickens or counting our eggs before they hatch, but I guess I kind of look at it the opposite in the respect that, we're going through and wanting that accountability and transparency, and this is a massive project. So in my opinion, those are both huge things with the voters and the public in general, the accountability and the transparency. And if we can go through and bring additional transparency in that to the project, and and especially even a lot of the things you just added as far as the better quality as far as the bids and stuff like that, I guess I go back to, again, why wouldn't we want to get them on board sooner rather than later? And on top of that, even if we still have lots of education to do. There's no doubt about that. So there's no, I don't think anybody sitting here is of the opinion that, this is a slam dunk and that it's done by any means. Quite the opposite. I think we all realize that there's a lot of education that needs to be done and get out there. But at the end of the day, I guess I also look at, we really don't have anything to lose, because even if we were to go through and start the process and go through and out there, we're not out anything at the end of the day if the bond doesn't pass from the construction management at risk firms. So I guess that's kind of where I'm at, is just, based off of all the pros that you just talked about here, why wouldn't we as a board want to look at moving forward with that?
Most certainly could. I don't know if there's a great amount of benefit between now and the bond issue, that is going through the entire process of, by the time you go through the process that's required by statutory process, but by the time you go through that process and execute it, get it done, make that selection, that you'll have any time to gain from a construction manager being on board between now and your bond issue. So, that's out there. It is a gross amount, a significant amount of effort by a construction management firm that are going to consider themselves to go into this process in terms of cost and energy. You've got a pre-qualification phase, which is a smell process and energy. Then you're going to have a fees basically phase, and then your fees are your proposals, and which is scope is developed by our firm and by the school district and criteria, and that information is going to go out to those who have been shortlisted or pre-qualified, so that then they're going to, at the end, turn around and put in another proposal with that kind of information, and as part of that, going to the state of Kansas, who evaluates fees, the grading criteria. So that process is going to take a significant amount of time that I don't know that they'll ever get to a point where they're going to add any kind of contribution between now and the bond issue. So it's only, I'm just throwing that out there, Lance, it's only consideration may go through a gross amount of time for a construction manager and not pass a bond issue, and they're spend a lot of energy. Other than that,
If we were considering going that route, does it put us ahead of the game to consider that now, though? Because I'm sitting there listening to everything you're saying, going, oh, do we have to start that then in June? And how long does that take? So
it's a process that we need to go through. We started in June. There's a lot of process that we'll go through once a bond issue passes that'll take us a fair amount of time, that our contracts included the construction and design and engineering part of it, and our fees related to that. We'll have to go through that negotiation process with the board. There's a lot of process that has to be done from the time you pass the bond issue before you really start in earnest in the type of design and engineering process. So I don't know that, would you be ahead? Sure you would. Or would you be significantly ahead?
I just know it seems like every town hall meeting, every time we're talking about it, it's always a timeline. Everyone goes, well, when are you starting this? Was this, I think everyone, I should say everyone, I think sometimes the mindset is, well, this will take years to get started anyway. And so.
That's good.
Because I was thinking, I'm trying to read, I can't picture it in my mind, but I do remember reading through the process, and it's several weeks.
Yes.
Several weeks to almost a couple months to get through, to even get to the point where we can select somebody.
And I know we started some of it, because I know Sarah published the stuff that we were going to talk about and things like that. I don't know where we stand from there. I'd have to look at the statutes and everything else.
But it's not a quick process. I remember that being very drawn out.
That probably was an informal thing, but it's not anywhere close to statute, advertising in the newspaper, advertising with industry trade, advertising with the AGC, and then starting, that's just phase one, and then pre-qualifying, pre-qualifying into it.
And then it has to go to the state at some point.
The state has to see the fees,
Ron,
criteria.
I think Ron is, can you actually share any of that? I'm sure you've been through that.
You can pull it off in 45 to 60 days.
Okay.
Is what we took.
Which puts us to June.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. The question I have, since we decided to split it into two different portions of this, does that change the amount of funds that are available to complete the projects as they were originally intended? Are those amounts that we've split it into enough to cover both, or is there some difference in fee structure because we have two different projects?
Yeah, so, yeah,
because we split it into two questions. The one is the main thing about the safety issue, the classroom spaces, the infrastructure, the things that are there, and then the other part again comes down to the multi-purpose room or the gym if you want, but the idea that those activity spaces will be for the community as well as for the school because of how it's used within the community with different events across the way. Does that change our, we still end up the total same amount of money? There's no fact that we split it into two propositions?
No, you'll end up the same amount of money. So we basically, all the soft costs, all the engineering fees, everything related to each one of those has are split with them.
Okay.
So,
Okay, I just wanted to check that out.
Anybody have any other questions on any of that?
Is this something that we're deciding and voting on, or?
Not tonight, but I would assume I guess that's true. I guess we probably need to talk about that. Do we want to put it on the agenda then?
That's what I was curious
And,
about. Is this something that we're going to be voting on at the next meeting? And what specifically are we voting on?
Well, I would assume, well, I didn't catch
Is there
up.
is there a resolution, Bill? Do you know?
I'd have to review that process.
Yeah, I do too.
I've never been through it. It's a very.
Is there a resolution, do you know, Chuck, that they have to? So I was thinking there was, but I don't.
If you wanted to go SAM at risk, the first step is that the statute says that you have to have an opportunity for the public to come at an open forum and to talk about it and have any input from the public. So after you've had that meeting, then the board, somebody on the board can make a recommendation whether to deliver the project under SAM at risk and have that, somebody makes a motion.
So basically, we can't even, this is something.
So the next,
we have to have
if everybody is looking at that, I would assume the next meeting we would have to, is that correct, Bill? Basically notice it then that it would be, we would have a section carved out for the public to come in and if there were any concerns or comments.
I think you have to publish it so long in the newspaper and put it out to.
15 days.
Yeah,
thing.
and then that, I mean, you advertise when that time is, but,
As I'm hearing all of this, I'm worried about, again, as we were earlier with, we had a confounding message. We were saying, we got a petition, got a bond issue, and we're confounding our people ourselves because we were, within our own selves, we were trying to get two things done at once, and there was confusion. It doesn't sound like we're out a significant amount of time if we wait to do, I mean, it sounds like this is a good way to go, but our focus should, I think that we should keep our focus on, let's pass the bond issue. We can keep gathering information for ourselves. We could begin to make the plans of, you know, once it's passed, we have the resolution, we get the public advertising, the public in. Given the fact that we're probably 2 months out, we're already into, basically we're into June already. And I'd rather keep our focus on bond issue and come back. Again, it sounds construction management risk sounds like a very good proposition for us to consider, but I don't want to put our energy in getting it through before we spend our, I'd rather put our energy in getting people informed and educated, our role, getting people educated about it, and the volunteers' role, but trying to get more information about the voting process. Let's say it was.
Sure.
And I'm just speaking my opinion of where I'd like to see our energies go.
I guess that would be my other question is would there be a lot of energy that would be required from the board to move forward with this? Because I mean, I don't really think it's a public.
I think it's confounding the issue. In other words, if we have, again, it goes back to the petition drive. Our experience here was we were talking, sign the petition, but then you went there, people saying, well, petition, bond issue, and we got enough signatures to do it. And what I'm thinking is, let's not have a mixed message out there. Let's just let our volunteer group keep that going. Because now if we do a public forum, then we've got to do that. And then if we would have to do that, required to have that up there. And it's going to be talking about the advantages or disadvantages of how we go about building. But it's really not going to talk about why the vote is important, why it matters to the community. Because that has to be a very focused meeting on the options of those that may be general contractors that want to speak their case and the rest. I'm just saying let's keep the message clean. And it's not about what we're choosing to do. I think, and we as a board could have this discussion here without starting the filing of the paperwork, because as I read through that process, and I read it through it, I said, this is a lot of work.
Sure.
And it's very good, and then we're making an assumption we don't get jammed up at the state level, which would never happen in Kansas. But remember, it's not just us.
Sure.
It's the state has to approve that the people we put up. So that's my opinion, is that let's just put that on hold and not confuse the message that we want to get out there.
Two other questions that I just want to throw out there. Does it help or hurt us if we have that decision already made as far as getting a yes or no vote? And I don't know the answer, I'm just
I
posing.
don't know the answer.
Yeah, and then the other thing too is, and I can't remember what bill it is with the legislation, but they keep talking about changing bonds and how the process is it all part of that? Are we worried at all about something passing
We don't get-
legislation that would hurt?
We don't get state aid
No.
anyway, and they're talking about that aspect of it, so.
Yeah,
Right
that-
now, what they're talking about wouldn't have any effect on
Okay.
us.
And the answer to the first one is that the outcome is we're going to, if it's voted on, we're going to do it. We're going to build it with the most cost-efficient way, cost and quality efficient way that we can. And I think that's the message we get out there. And as we can, I mean, that's where we're at. We could talk about it all now, but the only thing we're going to really base it on is best for the money that we can do, best quality we can do, to ensure that we have a product that's going to last, be sure that at the end we have a 30-year life cycle, which is what we've been talking about. We do this is an investment in the next 30 years to get us through. And so I think if we get that out, that means it's up to us to look and get community input on what's best. If we wait, wait 2 months, but we won't actually be able to do much until 2 months now. Because most of the work, other than the public forum, if I understand the process right, isn't happening here. It's happening, we put together, the bidders put together their things, we look, we send that stuff off to the state, somebody at the state examines it, ratifies, is that yes, no, you tell me, I got it wrong?
The only thing that the state looks at are the fees,
Okay,
and those are turned right around within 24 hours. So
all right, so that's it, but
that's, yeah, the state's nothing, but it takes about 45 to 60 days to get through the whole process. But the state's not,
okay, so that's
doesn't
not
hold
hard.
you up.
So I'm not sure that we gain much. And I think the communication I want to get out is we're looking at the options to choose the best quality at the best price. Again.
Anybody else have anything to add?
Well, I can see that. I'm not sure I'm in a disagreement with that, but what I would want to make sure is that if we have any other further questions as a board or individually, if there's any additional information or people that we want to reach out to speak with, that we go ahead and move through that process so that we are ready to execute on that decision immediately should the bond
I
pass.
think, I'm sure there is it's laid out the process to do a construction management and you probably have that, Chuck. We can have that at the board meeting, at the board meeting and walk through the processes of, I don't know. What I've heard is the publish in the newspaper and those things and the number of days, but before we say, yeah, we're going to do, I think we at least need to get and Bill and I can work on that,
I think it's important that
know what we're doing if we're going to.
understands more than what I have to say or CM firm has to say or traditional delivery, but really kind of take this opportunity to educate yourself in what these things are, so when you do make that decision, you've had that communication, you've had that process with public, and you're able to stand up here and go, you know what, I think this is the right thing for this project, and we're going to do it, and not kind of rush your way into it and have conflicting opinions when you get there.
Well, we will, do you want it on the agenda as discussion, I mean, and we'll put together the procedural things, I mean, that this is what we need to do first, second, third, fourth, and walk through that, and then,
And I would feel good about us being able to come up with, the contingency is, you know, I'm going to say, be positive on, you know, bond passes, that we're ready to go, as Sarah said, the next day, or special meeting to begin the process and move it forward. But to do that, we do have to be educated, and we would have to begin to get some of the, what we need to have put
Right.
together.
okay.
That way, we're not losing the time, or we're not falling behind, so that, you know, these are important things for the community, important things for the school, that we can expedite them most efficiently.
I think by doing that, at least we're not waiting until afterward for everything,
Right.
and we've got all the groundwork done.
And I'm thinking if we have the, you know, money in hand, you know, here's the promise that people, our community have said, we believe this is what we want, we'll probably get a nice selection of people who are going to bid, because, well, now my effort could be worth my time to put this in. Whereas before, it's kind of like, well, yeah, it's worth my time. You know, I don't know. I was just thinking it's always nice to know the money's available to do it.
Okay.
Anybody else? Okay. Thanks, sir.
I have one more comment
Oh,
on.
sorry.
No, it's just on the bond issue in general, and the video that Mr. Ballman's class, I believe they did that, with Patrick Lowry and Bryce Young. We showed that the other night. I'm sure it's clean, but that to me was a really good touch, to have the two committee chairs from the Facility Needs Committee give their explanations of how we got to this point. And I know they're going to start looking at other sound bites and do all those things, but there's a lot to do. There'll be a lot of people out hitting the pavement and talking door to door, but it's been, I mean, I think what everyone said, the real negativity, not that everybody's for it, but it's, people are listening, whether they're pro or con, listening, asking questions when we go out. Most of the civic groups and things like that, we reach more people than we have at town hall meetings, and we just are trying to encourage people, if they have questions, to come to one of those. It's been interesting, been good. Picked up a lot of good information, and I think we are listening. We made the decision to split that based on town hall meetings and those things, and it's been good. So we'll continue that process. Oh, I'm just going to have a little statement
Okay.
of what the process is. And
Okay, any other questions, and why Chuck is still here for the bond, or anything else for Dean? Okay, we'll move forward. I guess we'll have that information for the next board meeting, for the rest of that. Go from there. All right, next item on the agenda is non-renewals. Dean?
And what we will do is, at the April 18th board meeting, we will have anyone that is being recommended for non-renewal. There'll be a resolution. Sarah will have to deliver that notice to anyone that is going to be on the list, and give them notice of that. We have to make sure that process is done before the third Friday in May, but I would like to do it as soon as we know. And but that's the process that we'll go through, and that'll be on the agenda then for the board meeting.
Okay, any other questions on the non-renewal stuff? Okay, next item on the agenda is the internet purchase contract addendum. And I think we have
Scott
to share.
Everybody. I think you all got a copy of like the overview I sent out. I guess kind of go through why we're looking and my thoughts behind it. We do hit right now we have a 200 meg internet connection. We upgraded that July 1 of 2015, from 125 up to 200. For the most part, 200 gets us, but there are parts of the day that we hit that 200. Maybe briefly, we've had it up to 30 minutes plus. There's been a few days we've actually run at 200 megs most of the day. So, when we hit that cap, it causes a lot of frustration in the classrooms. Apps are not opening, not working correctly, and I think most of you understand that from home use. Everybody gets on and starts watching Netflix or something, and how frustrating that can be when you're trying to get something done. So, at 200 meg, my thought of going to 400 was based off of E-rate covers us jumping. We go through the addendum to our contract, we file that with E-rate. E-rate's already approved that. So, say we get to October next year, realize 400 is more than we can come back down from that. E-rate will still cover. Say we only went up by 50, and then realize next October 50 is not enough, we need another 50. We pay out of pocket for that difference. E-rate will cover it. So that was my thought. I'd rather shoot a little higher, come back down, than to be back in the same boat next year. Talking with Dean, looking at our 3-year tech plan, we do have listed in there telecommunications, and we do move that up each year.
Yeah, and Tracy will be here for the board meeting, but 15-16, I think it was 89,000 for telecommunications and internet access. This year, 95,000 telecommunications, internet access. Next year was budgeted at 104,000 for those things. And we budget for not having E-rate. So an example of, I have last year's phone bill is part of this as well. Renee said we paid $16,061 for phone service last year. And our internet connectivity was $21,420. And there may be a couple other things, and without Tracy, I don't want to mislead anybody, but without her being there, but we budget it just, if E-rate for whatever reason, federal government says, oh, we're not doing it anymore, we need to make sure we have it covered. So we cover it, we budget without E-rate, but, excuse me, but we get E-rate currently at 70%.
Scott?
Yep.
One of my questions was, what data are you using to look at what we need?
As far as like tracking our traffic in and out, Eagle provides us with a login to their Cacti server, so we can see right at their head end our data in and out.
Okay.
Now, from that point on, it hits our core switch and scatters to each building. We have set up an internal server to try to monitor, what's going to high school, middle school. But what that does, it tracks all traffic. So that could be internet traffic coming from the high school. That could be the media class putting something on the server. There's no way to distinguish.
What building are we seeing that seems to be using most of the bandwidth due to the fact that we've jumped so much over the last year?
It's all over the place. I mean, when we fired, we didn't have that server in place last year, so there's no numbers to compare to. But right now, I mean, if we had to drop a marker on it, Hayes High, we do see a bump in traffic there late morning, late afternoon, but whether that's internet traffic or something related to a class, like I said, media going back and forth between servers, we can't draw that distinction with because we're using a free piece of software, trying to diagnose it without dropping a lot of money.
And the other reason I was asking is I know when we had looked at the wireless stuff, they had been monitoring all of that stuff to see, and we were supposedly saturating the connection. So I was just curious if that's the case, we should have data from back then. That's the reason I'm kind of curious.
I can ask, nothing was left for me anyway, so. And I know, Sarah, you'd asked the question about the moving of the data center.
Yeah.
Was everybody clear on that, the difference? Okay. And, I do want to thank Eagle for providing that, because that's very convenient to have all of our equipment located right there where all the schools come together. Because, as I understand the way before, if you wanted a web page at Roosevelt, you went back to Eagle's, head in out to the high school through our connection, and then back out to the internet. So it does help.
Have we, by chance, talked with Eagle as far as about setting up some temporary bursting or anything like that to see where we'd be hitting on that rather than just, pulling 400 meg out of the air?
They do provide us, we pay, we can at any time do a 2-week shift in our internet at 20 megs, or $20 per meg. So, we could, for a 2-week period, go up to 400 and see where we were at, but, we paid for that 2-week period.
Scott, when is the E-rate deadline? If you want to do that, when's that have to be determined?
With the jump up?
Yeah.
Not to be presumptuous about it, but I already filed paperwork, just it's in place, we can always come back from it, so.
Okay, so that piece that's not a concern,
There's no
about the timing of that. Yeah, we don't have to accept it, but, okay.
Correct. It's there if we do go up, it's there. If not, we can refile.
Well, I didn't want to just not do it and then all of a sudden, oh, we didn't do it in time and then can't. But okay, yeah, I got you.
I had one other question. As far as bandwidth in general, and you may even be able to take off, your previous district you worked with, any idea as far as districts our size, where we're looking speed-wise in comparison?
I've talked to districts our size or even smaller. A lot of them are going to 1 gig. And, I know costs are kind of locked in at this 3-year right now, but, if we were to do that based off our current price, it would be $250,000 almost. So, but I know other districts out there that are, it's almost too cheap. So, and I know that varies from, vendor to vendor as far as across the state, because they themselves are in contracts for how much they pay their bandwidth. So, next fall we'll start, or this fall we'll start the process with E-rate of rebidding that, and at that point I'll see how high we can go and kind of keep in the same cost where we're at. Last time we renegotiated this, I think we came in at a higher speed at lower cost. So. And it is, I wish there was some formula out there that, I could say that 2,100 iPads will use this much, but
sure.
Unfortunately, it's hard to hit a moving target like that. So it's my hope, if we do go up to 400, we can come back and, we can work even this year to maybe do a 2-week increment here and really get a solid figure figured out.
You mentioned it was morning and afternoons at the high school.
Well, it's not just the high school, but yeah, late morning and then right before school gets out are our 2 times that we're almost guaranteed to peak out every day.
Yeah. So I guess the question is that usage going to be attributable to personal devices of high school students?
What we did,
passwords to
so to try to get curb some of that, we went through and we're now on a 4-month cycle with all of our guest networks, switching passwords, and that did help to an extent to knock some of the personal traffic off the network. And, we left the new passwords with the building administration and the techs, to give out as needed, so it wasn't a free-for-all.
On the personal devices, though, I guess, and that was actually a question I had in addition to that. If I were to take, whether it's a personal laptop or whatever out there, and say I want to start downloading some movies or doing whatever else, do we have any sort of traffic shaping or anything in place that basically says if it's a personal device, you only get 2 meg or 3 meg per connection, or is it just wide open and they pull whatever they want?
Not based off of a device, but we do have it set, some bandwidth shaping set as far as streaming media, so things like that don't consume our whole connection. But as far as a breakdown between a personal device and a school-issued device, I mean, I don't know where you'd start setting that. I mean, you have to require logins for everybody.
Well, I know a lot of your places go through and make a separate SSI. I mean, they basically have they'll do either your authentication based off of AAA authentication or whatever, to where their personal devices aren't allowed on the same network. They can get on, but, and I guess that's my question. I mean, the people that are bringing in the personal devices and stuff like that, I mean, they're not really being used in class, are they? We're basically just allowing them access on the network?
Marty, do you?
Jen said, would you ask that again?
I said my question was, is the people that are bringing in the personal devices and stuff like that, we're not really, they're not, it's not like if I bring my iPhone or this machine in here, I'm being asked to use it for class projects and things like that.
Since Scott and his crew changed the password, honestly, we don't even get the yes teachers because they can log onto that. We had one drive last Thursday or Friday. They needed to do things wirelessly, so we gave only their workers the password. Really, our staff doesn't need for it, so even the teachers.
We don't
I don't know if
expect.
I'm asking anything.
Well, there isn't an expectation that, I mean, Cheryl did a presentation where, we all pulled out our cell phone and did that. That's not an expectation that we have students use a personal device during the day.
Rather than the
Not-
surfaces or
Not
whatever.
very often.
Yeah, okay.
But certainly there are some apps that teachers will have to use from time to time, but not very, very.
Yeah, okay. That's what he was wanting, yeah.
My question was, along those lines, more of the question, if are we doing anything, because basically we're just allowing them internet access on their phones or other devices that they come into the school with, or is that not the case?
No, not anymore. That's what Scott was saying.
Okay.
About,
Yes,
cycling. Cycling those passwords to kind of prevent it, because as far as I can tell, they'd been set for, since the
Quite some
system had
time.
gone in.
Well, and there was a pattern to it, because we've talked a lot about that too, because we
Yeah, all
don't
you have to do is
define
change
purchasing,
the-
spending, district
Everybody
dollars
do
for
that.
personal, but now they're pretty coded. I mean, they're not easy. You'd have to remember it and see it to type it. It's a mix of numbers and letters.
They're
So
randomly generated.
Scrambled, which
Good.
should
Sure.
tour anyone from,
But as we train these kids to be more tech savvy.
Yeah, I know.
I know, that's the problem, Paul.
You gotta stay one step ahead.
Yeah.
So I heard about testing issues last week in Laughlin. Was that connectivity issues?
No,
or
I mean,
was that something else?
cable was cut at KU.
It was connectivity, but
It's not us.
It went, it was statewide.
All the way to Alaska.
Alaska.
The whole state of
and
Alaska
they-
also
Oh, okay,
testing.
okay.
They stopped testing altogether. We were back on today, they worked all weekend. They gave us like 3 days of, okay, the green light, maybe a yellow cautionary light, like 10 o'clock, we were like, we're done. It was crazy. The Band-Aid temporary fix was not working. And so today, they said they had worked a lot of the weekend and felt good about it, and it went well. I know Marty said it went well at Hayes High. And I think I talked to Lee, I did not hear any concerns, so that meant it went well. In the building, so.
On this item then, do we want this on the agenda then as an action item and for,
So Tracy will be back and she can answer those budget questions. Okay.
Yeah, 'cause I would like to see at least some of
Yeah,
that.
I'd
before
like
we-
to. If- and
okay,
if
we'll
she could bring
leave it
up-
on there as an action item and then we'll have that
And Dean,
discussion.
if
So,
Tracy
okay.
could bring what you just pulled up, when we walked through the technology.
Yeah, is there anything else you want us to add first then with the link?
I think it's just that sheet that showed what we planned on for
Our
these
district
purchases
tax.
year to year, that thing, what is that called?
That's our district tech budget, our
There it is,
digital
okay.
plan.
And then capital outlay, so we can see where it's coming from.
And most of this is general fund, but,
Oh, it is.
yeah, some of it is, some of it isn't, but, yeah. So anyway, she'll have all that
Okay.
information, yeah.
Because it's internet connection, is that why it's general? Okay.
Yeah, you can't, unless they change something, right? Which
At least
you
right
never
now it
know.
is.
Yeah, what time is it thing?
Any other questions for Scott?
And I'm sorry, one more thing.
Mhm.
Do we want to put on the motion itself, just for record keeping, that we'll be voting on the 48,000 per year? Is that what it is? But that our budget impact with the E-rate will be 14.4?
Yeah, because I think we talked about that before, Bill, didn't we? Because the board basically, it's still an expenditure, even though we're
Right.
getting it.
Right. But I think
Reimbursed.
the
Right.
way it's
Mhm.
worded now, we're not mentioning the 14.4, so it'd be nice to.
And Scott, you had said you submitted that. I mean, has it been approved then,
Yeah.
if we decide to go that route, so we know that the
That
money is there,
piece is
there's
done.
no,
Okay.
okay.
Good. And it could be whatever, anything between
Yeah.
2 and 4.
Like I said, I just didn't want to bump up a little bit and then be back in the same boat and
Yeah.
have to pay
And
a
then-
lot of the difference.
Because you can only apply so often, and if you miss the boat, then you end up paying the whole thing without the discount, so. Okay.
Well, kudos to you for staying on top of that.
Yes.
No problem.
Thanks, Scott.
Yep, thank you.
All right, next item on the agenda is the approval of fees for the 2016-17 school year.
Okay, they are listed there, and we reduced fees last year down to $135 for workbook/material fees. Kindergarten full pay was $150, reduced $75, and then free lunch was $0. High school tech fee, $50. We have added the middle school tech fee if we send devices home. If we don't send them home, we don't have to charge it, obviously, but if we're going to do fees, I just soon have it on the list, and if we need to, then it can be charged. And I think Craig is working on a presentation about taking iPads home and those types of things. Activity fees, none of these have changed, other than adding the middle school tech fee. High school activity fee, $66, middle school, $62. And Jessica had gone through our meal prices. Before, breakfast prices all remained the same, and then elementary, middle school, high school, and adult lunches all increased by 10 cents. And what we're asking then at the board meeting for you to approve the fees, we approved driver's ed in summer school at the last meeting, I believe.
So, just to be clear, so there's no increase in fees?
There's no increases in here,
Small increases on the meals.
Except.
other than the meals, and that's kind of dictated by the state. And just as a caveat to that, one of the things, I listened to the webinar Friday about the new proposal, and these things are so far out there, we don't know where it's going to go. But one of the things they said they would not pay for is food service. Now, we are self-sufficient, so we wouldn't have to worry, but there's so many districts, probably more so than not, that are not self-sufficient and they have to subsidize, that they would not be able to subsidize food service. So their prices are going to go sky high. It just a lot of those things. And I don't know where that's going to go, but right now, if the Supreme Court says what they decided to do next year, keep your fingers crossed, it's a windfall for Hayes, $317,000. If Supreme Court says no, that isn't going to cut it, then they go back to the drawing board, and who knows. But so anyway, that's where we are.
Very good. Any other questions on?
And that'll be on the agenda as an action item then.
Any other questions on fees or anything?
Well, yeah, and the technology fee, when would that be decided if that would be out again?
The tech fee, Craig, when do you, when we talked about it, but I don't, was it the first meeting in March or the, in May, I mean, geez.
In May,
Yeah.
bringing in, I've worked with our tech cadre on that, and we had a faculty meeting, you know, it was just almost unanimous. We're just trying to put things together, the points of the teachers, and they're listening to the kids of what they can do with it, so we're going to bring that back in May.
Okay. All right.
Because we really don't do anything with these fees till enrollment in the end of July,
Yeah.
August, but obviously it's nice to give families a heads up, the sooner we know the better.
But it's nice to not come in and raise everything this year. Good, except for 10 cents on it.
And that's required by the state, I think, otherwise we
What's
had,
that?
the meal prices, we had to go up
They-
based on the
yeah,
state.
there's a
otherwise-
formula you-
Otherwise,
they use
otherwise
to-
we would have to, I don't know what the deal was, we would have to offset the cost or something, I remember saying.
All right.
Now, we have a very efficient food service program. I feel good about it. It's one of the, I say few, there are getting to be more, but self-sufficient programs around, I'm sure.
And next item on the agenda is the superintendent search. And that, I think we just need to go through and discuss as far as kind of what's been going on as far as the search and kind of where we're at. I also think as a board, and I will, and I will take a good portion of the blame for this as well, we've done a very poor job, in my opinion, of being transparent with this whole process. So I want to personally apologize for that, because I think we should have probably had more discussions down here in open session concerning this. But regardless, I guess we'll kind of open it up and let anybody, as far as anyone wants to discuss anything on that.
I think it does rightfully fall under personnel transactions, so I think it's just probably worth sharing with the public that we have been hard at work over the last 3 weeks with discussions and executive session about superintendent search, and I feel that when we have a firm decision, we will be sharing that with the public.
Anybody have anything else they'd like to share?
Do we want to discuss just, in general, you know, if we're looking at external candidate, we talked about costs, you know, the
Sure.
KASB, in the past, they projected 5,000 or 6,000, so those would be some costs we would have,
Sure.
you know, going something like that. You know, I think, I'm going to quote you, Paul, what was it 43? I mean, I know there's right now, yeah, there is definitely in the state, there's a very large group of open superintendent positions, which can also be scary.
Sure.
You know, because it might make it hard to fill that position. Trying to think of other unimportant factual tidbits that, you know, we are definitely looking at and considering on this whole process there.
Yeah. Yeah. I will share, I ran into a superintendent firm recruiter at a meeting I was at this weekend. He was talking about in Nebraska is where he works, and said they have more business than they can take. They can't take any more on, because it was just an informal conversation, and that a large number of their applicants are from Kansas, which I thought was
Disheartening.
well, even in our area, there are superintendents that are leaving this area to go to Nebraska, so for what that's worth. Just an indication that it's a tough market, whichever way we go.
I think you also have some, which I think was even shared with us, you even have some that are coming out of retirement for...
And they have a 3-year cap unless they change the caper. That's been more in the eastern part of the state.
And if I'm not mistaken...
Yeah, I don't know where they are with the capers things, honestly. It seems like it changes all the time. Because I know some had resigned and are leaving for other states that thought they had, their time was up.
or 3 years.
And now that, I don't know if it's changed or not, so.
Yeah. Just Nebraska's benefiting from Kansas superintendents. Or superintendent applicants. What that may be worth.
And if I'm not mistaken, according to KASB, because I was looking further into it as well, I think 20-some of those positions have been filled. I think there's 20-some left.
So
I think there were a total of 40-some positions, if I'm not mistaken.
I think
At least the figures that I saw.
Well,
right,
this
it's maybe closer to 50 now, because there was another one opened up last week. I mean, it's just the shuffle. The superintendent took a position in Kansas, and then that one opens, and it just, there's a huge.
Or they
shuffle.
take one in Missouri, and
Yeah.
I don't know.
Who approved that?
I guess one thing is that, even though our executive sessions have been personnel, it's not, is that, I think our discussion within the board about the merits of external or internal, and then trying to look and vet through the process, seeing if we have a viable internal candidate. And that really wasn't accessible to the public for confidentiality. The internal candidates we have been looking at. And so so I know that there is that concern if we've been doing something actively. Sure. But protecting the individual that we may be looking at for whatever decision we decide to make.
Right.
On that. So I just wanted to get that out there.
You have put a lot of time into discussing it.
And
It's different sitting down here than up there.
Yeah, and I don't want to take away from that. I just wanted, like I said,
No,
I felt like we probably should have at least given some more updates.
No,
And hindsight's 20/20, but going forward, I think we definitely need to be more.
Yeah.
He's the most important position.
Absolutely.
It is, and that's the only person we would. Other than the voting.
So I would assume we'll obviously have an exec session tonight. I would assume we'll discuss some more and whether we need to come down and do a vote one way or the other, or add something to the agenda for the next meeting. We can definitely go through and do that. We can do that tonight, or let Sarah know or whatever to add that, so.
But been active in the process. And protecting confidentiality of the individuals, so.
Anybody have anything else?
I do under the other topic, or are you still on?
No, you're fine.
I just wanted to mention that negotiations training, we exchanged letters, we have ours from the teachers, they have ours, and it is a requirement now, the board does training. And I had mentioned the online Greenbush program, and I mean, I don't know if you want to try to get the teacher negotiators, and we probably need to determine who board negotiators are, and then maybe sit in here and do the online training. I don't know if they want to participate or not. I think some of them went to maybe KASB. They were at a different training, and
Dean doing one out here?
do what?
Don't they have one scheduled?
They do. This training is online. If that's the route we want to go, it doesn't cost anything is what I'm looking at.
At least if
And
it's
I think
online, it makes it also a little easier for people's schedule too, in my opinion. So,
I will look at that and get all the information and try to get that scheduled then here in the very near future, because you probably.
Date that has to be done by or anything?
I think just before you start negotiating, I don't know. And you guys are probably ready to start again. You had such a long break from negotiating.
I guess reaching out to Hayes, KNEA.
Yeah, we'll send out and say, this is what we're doing. It'd be nice.
Well,
And I've heard it's a good program. I haven't sat down and watched it yet.
but having some representatives would be
Yeah.
worth our time.
I mean, if the whole board wants to do it, we can,
Well, that's
but
my
it's,
question. Were we looking at just a few of us? Or
I don't know. You guys tell me, and if you do, then we'll just
we'll have
call
to make the
a,
decision as far as who our negotiators will be, and then from there, I don't know if it makes any difference if everybody attends the training or not.
It may be worthwhile because at the end, we all play a role in making.
we'll call a special meeting if we have to. We'll do whatever and do it
Or do a
evening or, yeah. But I'll get the information and But I just don't want to forget that piece of it.
And then I had one other thing as far as other topics, and I don't remember, it may have been you, Sarah was talking, something had come up with the Smith Center bomb threat that had basically come up. Is it a good idea for us to go through and review our policies and procedures regarding this type of stuff and ensure that we're prepared? I mean, it's just kind of something that you hear about it, it's kind of like, oh, do we have everything in place for, and I know we do have policies and procedures and stuff like that, but.
Yeah, how often do you guys do your drills and stuff?
We have a crisis committee and we work through monthly all of our drills, but we have them scheduled throughout the year with the kids. But we have kind of a roundtable thing that goes along with our crisis committee that we meet once a month.
So we're on top of it.
Well, you're never on top.
Well,
I mean, you never get
but
enough.
at least.
It's a good time to bring that up and just send out the message about, are we, talk to your staff and this, and as a reminder, but yeah.
Okay.
You're never prepared, but that doesn't mean, as many times
And
as
I
you
guess it's at
practice
least
it.
good to hear that we're doing.
It is, yes, but we'll send out a reminder and it's a good time to do
Well, we have a
that.
district level committee, they probably need to
Yeah.
reconvene and make sure. that they-
Right, because
been a
Craig's
year
just
or so.
referencing-
Yeah, Tom
Right.
Albers
And
is
then we have a district.
in
I
charge
can't
of-
remember who chairs that, I haven't been part of it, but there's a safety committee with safety work comp stuff, and then there's the crisis committee.
Right.
Right.
Tom's in charge of that, and Rusty, and I don't know who else is all on it, but they're the ones, and they can, yeah, we'll have them get together and then do a message and just, as a reminder, so.
And maybe, just so that we're aware of it, somebody
Yeah.
providing a brief
Yeah.
here.
To give it
That'd be good.
Perfect. Anybody have any other topics for discussion? Okay, if not, I will make a motion that we enter into exec session for a period of 30 minutes. Let's start at 8 o'clock. To include the board, and I think Dean has a few minutes to go over the superintendent.
I
And
think it's
do you
all
need
personnel.
Do you need Bill up there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the board attorney for the purposes of personnel.
Okay.
Okay. Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
And then we'll come down whenever we.
Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.